So this is the Mindset for Healing class, and I'm a little bit biased, but I think it is the most important class when it comes to actual healing. And so I'm going to start right from the beginning. If you have any questions about anything, do not hesitate to just go ahead and ask. And this is relevant to many of the people who are going through programs at Synapse, but also just in life in general. So there are a few takeaways that should help with that. So when it comes to the actual process, I started much earlier as a patient than I did as a doctor. I'm going to start that way. So early on in my career, I was diagnosed with a muscle wasting disorder and was told I'd be in a wheelchair the rest of my life. So I came at this first as a patient, and I 100% believe that if I believe the doctors, and it was many of them that said that, including one of my mentors. I think I'd be in a wheelchair still, and it was not accepted. I did not accept that, and although I didn't have answers right away, I started my journey, and that health journey as a patient is one of the things that really helped direct me as a practitioner as well. So I found out very early on, and I'll give you just a quick 30 seconds of what I was diagnosed with. It was mitochondrial myopathy at its worst. I couldn't lift my arms. I couldn't raise up a glass of water because of the weakness. And it was progressing, and they said I would have about 2 years, but the data was kind of all over the place. The very first thing I noticed a change in my muscle strength is when I attended seminar, and I traveled all over Canada, United States, even Mexico, to look for help and for answers, different seminars. I was at a seminar that really just worked on you as a human being and our mindset, and I had some breakthroughs there and some ahas, and I woke up the next morning and I could move my arms better. So it was a very eye-opening experience to look at how much emotions and my own mindset played into my well-being. Fast forwarding many years now, after studying the brain and studying in particular an area of the brain called the basal ganglia that sets your tone for muscles and emotions, I realize how much our thoughts impact our ultimate use of our muscles and all our organs too. So the mind is very influential. So I'm going to go through some things I learned working with patients and with myself over the years as far as what you can do at home and in your general daily walk to help the healing process. So the first thing we're going to just talk about is just all the peaks and valleys. It doesn't matter where you're starting with your journey, there are ups and downs. And some people, as they're working on something, they can get to a lower peak, and that lower peak you'll feel pretty good because the sun is shining and you're feeling the warmth of the sun. But as you keep going, you're going to go down into another valley, if you will, and sometimes the coldness of that valley is not much fun at all. You can't feel the sun. It's dark. You can feel all alone. You can feel like you haven't made any gains or any progress. When I was going through my stuff in my 20s, I would have really bad days, really bad weeks, and then I'd have a good day and good week. And it's all about paying attention to what's working for you and where you've come, and not be discouraged by the darkness of the valley. And nothing takes care of darkness faster than light. One of the things I did when I did regain my health after a couple of years, I went and hiked in a mountain on a volcano with my father. And on that very same climb, I got a little sunburn on my forehead. Uh, and 2 hours later, I got frostbite on my cheek. When I got the sunburn, I was on the top of a peak, and the sun was shining, and we had to pull off all of our heavy uh, parkas and snow gear, and I just had my t-shirt on because it was so hot and we were sweating. And literally 2 hours later, we were in a bit of a valley where the sun was blocked, the wind was blowing, the snow was all there, and I got a little frostbite on my cheeks. And so within that same climb, that was like an eye-opener to me, just the drastic differences. And years later, as I was treating patients, I realized they are going through the same thing. And so it's a mental journey. You have to keep going. Sometimes you have to find a different path up the mountain. Sometimes you have to ask for help when you're in the darkness of the valley. And we always encourage people to ask their mentors here at Synapse, ask their doctors, ask people that are good and uplifting in your life that can help you keep moving forward. Ask God, pray about it, and then keep moving. And you will find that there are paths up that mountain that you didn't even know existed. But don't be surprised by the valleys, because they are very, very common. If we were perfect and did everything perfectly, we wouldn't run into valleys. But life isn't perfect. We are imperfect. And so it's very, very common, as there is a healing, to have these ups and downs. So the first thing, I love this picture. This is a picture of the kitten staring into the mirror and the lion staring back. So it's one of my favorite ones. And so we talk about guarding your thoughts because I realized that our thoughts are very much influencing how our body works. So the Bible talks about guarding your thoughts, but in science we also see that automatic negative thoughts. A lot of research by Dr. Amen showed how automatic negative thoughts can increase the tensile strength of our muscles. They can decrease the blood flow and nutrients to our muscles, and they can release inflammatory hormones and chemicals versus anti-inflammatory. Also, there is research by a doctor who showed that people who were in a state of fear, their muscles would actually tighten and weaken at the same time, but the cells at a cellular level, in a state of fear, the cells would literally fold over on each other like a frightened child, blocking all the receptors, so that all of a sudden the receptors that absorb the nutrients weren't getting into the cells. Same with the water. So we can measure intracellular dehydration, even if you're eating the perfect diet. We can measure that and see if someone is in a state of fear or fight or flight. Now, people who are in a state of love, their cells were wide open. So that tells you how much your state, your emotional state, your mindset state plays into just the overall benefit of absorbing the key nutrients that do help us heal as well. A negative state can block key nutrients from being absorbed. So we tell you, first of all, to guard your thoughts. When you look in the mirror, what do you see? How do you see yourself? Now, this one has two different ways of looking at it. Generally speaking, and this is a very general statement, when women look in the mirror, they tend to pick themselves apart. Whereas men look in the mirror and they could have this big beer gut and they'll look in the mirror and say, not too shabby. So both of them are not right. We have to be very, very careful about how you see yourself.
Different extremes. Yeah.
Yes, those are the two extremes. And so there's a nice, healthy balance there. And I wrote about this in my book 20 years ago, but I had a self-limiting belief that I was not a strong man, and therefore I developed a muscle weakness disorder over time. And so it was due to many various reasons. I was very, very tiny as a kid. I grew up in a divorced household and was trying to do what the neighborhood fathers were doing. And obviously, as a 10-year-old, 11-year-old, I couldn't keep up with that. So, and it's a mindset of a child versus mindset of an adult. So how you see yourself matters, and you want to not ignore this. So you may find yourself having self-condemning thoughts more than you should versus uplifting thoughts. You want to be your new best friend, but not to the point of enabling where you're not paying attention to the guy with the beer gut. Does that make sense?
Yes. Yep.
So also when it comes to guarding your thoughts, we look at how do you see food or exercise. I have some patients that get on a treadmill and they curse that treadmill for an hour. Well, you're actually undoing a lot of the benefit of the exercise. Also, when it comes to food, first and foremost, it's important for people to know that food is meant to nourish your brain and fuel your body. And we happen to live in a time where we can actually have really good tasting food, but we also have a lot of fake food. So when people have stress, they can sometimes go to food as their answer. So it's important to first look at what is food, and it's meant to really nutrient your brain and your body so that you can properly use that fuel for energy. Now, again, the mindset can help shut that down. So we want to work on our mindset as we work on first fueling our body. We want you to love yourself so much that you make good choices for your body. We don't need a very specific diet for you. I say this across the board to everyone. We should all be on slightly different diets based on what works for you and what doesn't. You have to have awareness. But we want you to make good, healthy choices for you. Now, what does that look like? At the program, as you go through the program, you're going to identify certain foods that will work for you and certain foods that won't. I'll give you an example. When I was first going through my uh, suffering with the muscle stuff, I could only eat chicken, rice, and broccoli. Those are the only foods that seemed to help. Now, nowadays, we know I had SIBO and leaky gut. But two of the worst things I could eat, or three of the worst things I could eat, were apples, garlic, and onions for whatever reason. So I just didn't eat them. Nowadays, we know that with SIBO, you should not eat those foods. And so we have to temporarily pull those foods out, fix the underlying gut issue, and then bring them back in. So you have to have awareness. And so how you see food and how you see exercise matters quite a bit. And we want to just guard against the thoughts of negative thoughts, if you will, self-condemning thoughts when it comes to exercise or food. But also, just because a research article says that something is good for you doesn't mean it's good for you. And so you have to pay attention to your body. That's the most important thing. Second part of it is we can use our thoughts to our benefit. So what is your vision of health? When I was told I'd be in a wheelchair and I couldn't raise my arms, the first thing I started to picture was lifting a broomstick with my arms. Then I started picturing throwing a football with my son, who was not born yet. I didn't even have a son at the time, but I wanted one. And so turns out my daughter was the one I ended up playing football with the most. She had the best arm.
Wow.
But same idea here. We want to have a vision of what we want our life to look like. Professional athletes, golfers, will actually envision every shot before they take the shot. Doesn't mean it exactly works out the way that they want it to, but they get good at it. It sets their body up to respond properly. So if you have a vision of what you want your life to look like, you will subconsciously help to create that. I had a vision of being on top of a mountain, on top of a volcano, and I knew if I could make it to that volcano, I would have had to have the mental and physical capacity to do that. And so slowly but surely, I was able to get back my health and was able to do that.
Yeah.
So what is your vision?
I'd love to do a triathlon someday.
Yes, so picture yourself crossing the finish line of a triathlon. Hold that in your mind, because then as you go to make certain choices, you want choices that support that vision. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And that's a great goal, the triathlon. I love that. I'm going to just tell Mary's story. This is on our website in the testimonial section. But Mary was a person that came in with bleeding colitis. She had ulcerative colitis. After every meal, she would have blood in her stool. Wasn't very pleasant, not fun at all. And she came in and said, I also have debilitating neck pain. I need to get adjusted every week, 3 times a week, just to get through the week because of the neck pain. We did our exam and everything, found out that her neck pain was all coming from the GI tract. So I said, when we fix the ulcerative colitis, you won't need to get adjusted anymore, or as frequently, I should say. And she said, I'll believe that when I see it. And so she started the program, and everything was going well. We measured a lot of things and found a lot of dysfunction stuff we could work on. Lab work came back, and it was also not balanced. We started fixing what we were finding. Then there was no real changes with her neck pain or bleeding in the first month, and she was starting to get very, very irritated. There was a lot of valleys that she was kind of stuck in, I'm going to say. But our physical markers were improving. So kept saying we're getting better, we're seeing gains, but she couldn't feel it. And truthfully, she was a thorn in my side. We joke about it now, but she kept saying, I hear you guys get everyone better and that you do this amazing stuff. Why am I not improving? And then I had to kind of keep her on track with the mountain climb that she was on, saying, we're making headway. It's just not to the point where you can feel it yet. Well, we hit the 3-month stage, and there was still not the breakthrough she wanted with the neck pain and the bleeding ulcerative colitis. So I said, we need to tackle mindset. There's something in the mindset that's not right. And she said, no, that's my strength, which it was. She was a leader in her church, and she helped many women in particular navigate life. And so it was her strength, if you will. But she fought me on that for 3 appointments in a row. And then finally, on the third appointment, there was something that was said, and neither one of us remember what it was. But as we were walking out of the room, I said something. She went home and she thought about it and prayed about it, and then she said, "You know what? There is something there." And she realized she hated her body. She hated that she had to eat differently than everyone else. She hated that she had to be different. So what she did was, instead of hating her body and having those self-condemning thoughts, she thanked God for the body that He gave her. And then something miraculous happened. The next day, she did not have blood in her stool. And then all of a sudden, she went a couple days without blood in her stool. There were some days mixed in where it was kind of coming back and forth. But then eventually, there was a week with no blood in her stool. And then eventually, we got to a week where she didn't need a neck adjustment. And then a month with no blood in her stool. And then a month with no neck adjustment. It took a while, but there was a healing that started to occur. And this was kind of the final straw for her. All the lab work and stuff had been improving, but she didn't feel a difference. When she identified this thought that she was having, self-condemning thought, it changed everything. She repented, literally went 180 degrees the other direction. And now she is 3 years removed from having any blood in her stool. And she's even gone a whole year without needing a neck adjustment. And she eats a vegetable, almost a vegan diet because of how good she feels. And she couldn't eat raw vegetables or vegetables really with ulcerative colitis for years. So you go 15 years without eating vegetables, you crave them. So her story is a perfect example of, even though it was her strength, there was one little thought that snuck in there, and it was the missing link for what we were waiting to correct through the whole process. So that's how important your thoughts are and your mindset. So we're going to look at one way to identify if there's any problem with mindset. One of them is excuses. One of my favorite quotes is, what lies you tell yourself? One of my favorite quotes is, nothing more than a reason wrapped in the skin of a lie. That's what an excuse is. And so if you throw out an excuse, you hear yourself throw out an excuse, stop for a second, write it down, and look for the lie that you're believing. So the lie that she was believing, Mary, was that mindset was her strength, and therefore nothing could have snuck past her. Well, that wasn't quite true. I'm going to give you another one. So I teach this class all the time, and many months back, I was just came from teaching the class, and then someone came up to me, and I said, "Oh, I don't have time for that." That's an excuse. And so I realized I just thrown out an excuse, and I wrote it down. And my schedule was really busy. I literally didn't have time to address it right then and there, which is kind of funny, but not. And so I ended up looking at that a couple days later and saying, "Okay, what lies am I believing?" Well, when I said I don't have time for that, it was in regards to starting a new program. And I wanted this program for the clinic. It's a large program. It's going to help a lot of people, but it needed to be developed. And so the lie was, I didn't think anyone else could do as good a job as I could in developing it. So I didn't delegate any responsibility. So what I ended up doing is I ended up delegating it to one of our doctors here, and thinking I would do 90% of it still. She would do 10%. Well, I was kind of right. In the first week, it wasn't what I wanted. But by week 2, it was pretty much exactly what I wanted, but even better. And she took over. She ended up doing over 95% of it. And I only did 5%, which opened up a whole bunch of time for me. And it also, she did such a wonderful job that she felt great about the work she had done. And it was way better than anything I had envisioned. So it ended up being a better program because I identified first the excuse and then the lie. So all I'm asking after this class is just to pay attention to excuses. Look at first how many people out there throw excuses about different things. And then you will be able to start to see things a little differently too. Number one excuse I usually see with people when it comes to weight that it's genetic, it runs in the family. Well, usually it's the habits that run in the family, not the actual genes, because true genetic obesity is very, very, very rare. So take a look at that. Find out if you happen to hear yourself saying excuse. It's an aha moment. Write it down and then investigate. And we will help you with that as well. Erin, in particular, our health coach, is very good at identifying that.
I love working with Erin.
Yes. So she'll help you identify the lie attached to any excuse. But it's a good way to tap into our self-limiting beliefs or our subconscious beliefs, or because the reason why they're subconscious, they're not in our conscious. We actually don't know what they are. So, but if you throw out an excuse about something, there's something you believe there that's a lie. And every time we can change a lie into our bad habit into a good one, then you've just made a game-changing uh, result for your body's ability to heal.
Like truth-driven habits
You
rather
got
than
it. Exactly. Bang on. So also, what excuses are you telling others? Just following up with that is going to serve you very, very well. Then once you unleash these lies, what are you capable of? So again, I'll use my own story here. I went from being told being in a wheelchair the rest of my life to running a facility from everything I learned and helping people do the same thing. So you never know what you're going to be capable of. And I remember when I was 19 years old watching Tony Robbins do a talk in front of a large crowd. And I remember saying out loud to my family, there's no way I would want to do that. That's like my worst nightmare, public speaking. And now I do that all over the country. I do that on the radio, been on TV, all kinds of different things, and I love it. And so you never know what you're capable of as you start to work on these things. One of my favorite quotes from the mastermind himself, Arnold Schwarzenegger: you can have results or excuses, not both. He's not really a mastermind, but I agree with this statement. And one of the other things that I'm going to talk about is identifying our strengths and weaknesses. So a lot of times people who are critical of themselves will point out their weaknesses or what they're not good at. And what we've identified through the help of another company is that your biggest weaknesses are usually just your strength in disguise, and you just have to back down off of them. So when it comes to the actual list, there's a little pop-up screen. I'll read some about. I'll give you an example. In my book, I went through over 25 different examples. On our website, we have those. But the strength, let's say your strength is that you are supportive, and then you over support, you can become self-sacrificing or a victim. If your strength is confidence and you're overconfident, you can become arrogance. So the reason why we point this out is because it's important to realize that you don't have to change who you are. You just have to surrender or reel in something you're good at to get more in balance. And so otherwise you will, like with arrogance, eventually you'll be humbled. There's going to be a consequence to when we're working in our strengths, basically, too much, because they will become our mental weaknesses. Some of the other ones here, if you're communicative and you talk a lot and talk well, if you talk too much, you can become a poor listener. Or if you are open or trusting and you're over trusting, you can become gullible. So we haven't really identified a weakness that we can't tell you what your strength is almost instantly. So if you find a weakness with yourself, then you just have to, again, reel it in, and there's your strength. You don't have to change who you are. This can be very, very important. Early in my career, I was mentally very flexible, which is a strength, so I could handle a lot of patients that were chaotic. But when I became too flexible, it became an inconsistent, unorganized process. So I had to reel in my flexibility, get some organization around it, and that cleaned things up quite a bit. One of the best things I ever did, I brought a coach in and helped with organize, and he kept saying, "You're way too flexible. You're way too flexible." And it was very eye-opening, and that's one of the reasons why I found this particular list to be very, very helpful.
Interesting.
So one of the other things, one of my favorite quotes is from one of our patients here, Susie Larson, radio show host for Faith Radio. She wrote a book and dedicated to the clinic, and this was her quote. I begged for healing every day and every night, and God seemed silent. Then one day he whispered, I could heal you today, but you'd lose it tomorrow. You don't have the infrastructure for healing. You think like a sick person. And that is such a big, heavy, crucial statement because if God can heal, he knows he can heal. That's not why we're here, basically. So when it comes to how we think, if we operate out of fear, you're going to drive more disease because you're not going to be absorbing the nutrients. We know that from scientists that have published that research. So guarding your thoughts, this is all a part of it. This is one of my favorite quotes. So we're also going to talk a little bit about perception because we can see things very differently. Have you seen this picture before?
Yes. Yep. I have. I tend to lean towards the young lady.
Right. So I'll show this picture in a group of 50 or 100 people, and usually about 60 to 70% will see the young lady, and 30, 40% will see the older gal. And there's
Yeah,
two.
I see the older one now.
Yes. So
But
there's two different women here within this picture, and the reality is, we a lot of times see what we see, but you have to take time to reflect and give it time to see the whole picture, so to speak. When it comes to a healing journey with your health, there's going to be stuff you see reflectively that works for you, but you have to give it time. So as you're climbing that mountain, you've got to give it time. Too many people will try one thing and then give up on it. They'll say, I tried avoiding sugar, it didn't work. Well, if your problem was candida or fungus and you gave up sugar and then you had to restore the proper pH of the GI tract, that means you had to fix the sleep disorder and fix the pH of the stomach in order to have this not come back again. So sugar was part of the picture. We tend to see things in 2D or 3D. This picture is a 3D picture, but fourth dimension of time is really needed to help a healing journey. So we want to see how well you do over time. With that, we also don't know how many dimensions God can see in. If God can see in 24 dimensions and we can only see in 4 dimensions, there's many, many more things that are there. And so it's very important to just realize, give it time, have patience, and then increase your awareness, and it'll become more real to you, and you'll be able to see how what works best for you in your health journey. And people will fight to be right about what they see all the time. We definitely get that nowadays with political scenes and stuff like that. People will see something and I cannot tell you how many experts there are on Facebook right now that just throw out instant opinions and stuff, and we really just need to slow down, take our time, reflect.
Blind spot too.
Yes, you got it. That's exactly
Yeah.
right. So this is another example. This is called the spinning lady, and this people will fight to be right about what they see here, but what I want to show you is if you look at the one on the left, first of all, just tell me if you see them spinning in the same direction or opposite direction.
Oh, I can see both. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're actually
Yeah.
spinning both directions. That's good. That means you have some discernment there. And so you can also make her change directions. If you look at the toe and then look away and look back, you can get her spinning the other direction.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And so this is just something we use to help people understand how others will fight to be right. So even though they may see something differently, you have to use discernment on who to trust within your inner circle and even yourself as far as what you see and what you don't see. So perception is very, very important. And a lot of times people who don't focus on discernment end up thinking stuff about themselves, the world, other people that just are out of context. Very important for the healing journey because stress causes you to crave salt and sugar, and nothing is more stressful than uncertainty for a lot of people. So here, if we add an extra dimension, it'll actually increase the visual observation that one is going clockwise or counterclockwise. Now it becomes really hard to see it any other way because we added an extra dimension to it. And
Yeah.
that's the same thing as you go through your health journey. Every time we get a lab test and then a repeat lab test, we're adding an extra variable, an extra dimension to it. As you do stuff over time, meaning avoid certain food or bring certain food in, it gives us another dimension. It's all information, and the programs are meant not necessarily to heal you, but to create an abundance of awareness of what works for you and what doesn't work for you. I've had many people who came in, actually just a couple weeks ago on our mindset class, um, came in and thought their problem was purely physical, and they didn't realize how much the mental component was playing into it until they felt better from all their symptoms and then had a stressful event and all the symptoms came back within one day. And she basically thought that's impossible. And with that thought and that dismissal, her symptoms cleared up again. So it was one of those things where the brain was really fueling this patterned physical consequence. And she was shocked because she really thought it was physical. So just keep paying attention to what works for you, what doesn't work for you. We also like to talk about just what has made successes as far as our patients' journeys here. One of the things I learned a long time ago is that we treat the whole person by putting all of the different puzzle pieces together. So when you first came in here, we talked about your diet and nutrition and your physical health. Hormones may play a role. Working with mentors may play a role, and then just your ability to naturally detox. That is a recipe, if you will, but there's a component to it that's very, very important. We have found that a lot of failure occurs in the healthcare system, the preventative healthcare system, I'm going to call it, due to not having a system in place. And so it's important to just take every step of the program and know that we're observing key factors. And then what we have found is that people who take 100% responsibility in life are the ones who have the successful outcomes we're looking for. So this is not ours. This comes from the book called Success Principles, written by Jack Canfield. He's the author of Chicken Soup for the Soul. And he interviewed many different successful people. Some of them were entrepreneurs, some of them were business owners, some of them were stay-at-home parents, some of them were athletes, but they were, for whatever reason, they're successful in their category. And the one trait that they all had was they took 100% responsibility for their results and their life. And so here at Synapse, we ask you to do that, but we also ask the doctors to do that at the same time. The success goes through the roof. And one of the things that I will say, I've had people come in with the exact same condition, and I've had them, the people who are on board with a positive attitude, who take responsibility, we work great together and we get tremendous outcomes. And I've had people with the same exact scenario don't take responsibility or fight us along the way, not heal properly. And so this one becomes very, very important when it comes to doing things as a team. Now, that's responsibility for all these areas. So we ask people just to continue to be open and honest with their diet if they're not following what we ask you to do, their level of fitness, all of it. And the outcomes just improve so much, much more. And if you get stuck, like if you're in one of those valleys, if you get stuck at any point in your program or past the program, stop and ask a better question, or like the slide says, a beater question.
Oh my gosh.
So that's a general rule of thumb that we always talk about. If you're stuck, frustrated, or discouraged, stop, ask a better question. If you're on that mountain, is there a better way to go up this mountain? If you're stuck because something's not working, ask yourself a better question, ask your doctor you're working with a better question, ask God a better question. And then when you do that, when you ask a question, especially with God or to yourself, what should you do? Stop and listen, because we don't want to keep talking and not hear the answer. So I also will say this: there are a lot of times when we are treating a lot of unknowns. We get people who travel from all over the country and from multiple other countries, and we run into scenarios we've not seen before, but we go into problem solving mode. And if we ever get stuck, then we start asking questions. We pray about it, we dig a little deeper, and we ask different questions. And I am shocked how many times a patient will come in after we've done this and they'll say, I found this research or I found this statement by this doctor. You think this would be good for me? And I'll say, no, I don't think that's going to be right for you, but it's perfect for who I was just praying about over here or was just researching over here. So it becomes a very, very important tool in my toolbox when it comes to actually getting answers and solutions. And when it comes to the big picture here, we believe there's an answer to every problem. When I was told I'd be in a wheelchair for the rest of my life, I didn't believe him. I believe that this was caused by something and could be fixed by something. I don't believe God would allow a problem without a solution. Like there's up, there's down, just like there's for every force, there's an opposite force. If there's a problem, there is a solution. We just have to work to find it. And we are documenting things here at SNAPS to help make that journey a lot easier for you. But we don't have all the solutions. We're not meant to have all the solutions, but we do believe they're out there. So with that belief system that there's an answer to every problem, just keep your eyes, ears, and brain open, and you'll be surprised at how you get unstuck. So to finish off here, we're just going to remind you that there's peaks and valleys. Do not be discouraged when you're in a valley. It's quite common, and know that God is working in every season and that we've been on this journey and this climb for many years now. And so there's a lot of things that we've seen that we can help navigate through. So with that, that's the end of the presentation. Any questions from your end?
That's awesome. I loved what you shared about the overstrengths in disguise. If I'm a very person who is sensitive to stress or have anxiety, I'm sure there's lots of strengths there that are just being kind of masked.
Yeah, I'll actually go to that one. So that was actually on the slide. So I will show you. So sensitivity is actually, if you are overly sensitive, then you can take things personally. That's the overdone strength, but that's the stress stuff. But oversensitivity comes from being empathetic, caring too much about people and results. So that's a very, very common one for people who do care. So we jokingly say, I need you to care less. But the reality is to learn to still be empathetic, to still be sensitive, but not take it on. This is so common with people in the healing world or practitioners who have a hard time with patients who necessarily don't do well or have challenges. So that's a very, very common one. So learning how to still care about what's going on, but not taking it on as a stressor is very important. So surrendering, there's a lot of surrendering involved with that one, and just trusting that you're going to still move forward. It doesn't. If you show that you don't show caring in a different way, they're not going to like you less or anything like that. There's a lot of factors that go with that, but that's a good trait that's one of the good traits of one of the good people. So it's a good thing. It means you're a good person, but we just need you to care.
Yeah. That's awesome. I super can relate to discouragement, when I'm triggered or, have a bad week, just not letting that define me.
Yes.
And knowing that, just really believing that there's other solutions out there, or, I'm missing something, or that, something can change or have finding a new solution that's different than what I'm currently.
Not always easy, but that is the answer.
I think that's all of just my thoughts. I took some notes and very helpful to go over these things.
Very good. If anything pops up, just let us know, and we'll help you walk through it there.
Sounds good. Thank you, Dr. Troy.
You bet. Take care.
Bye.